All right, the court will conclude then with my own review of the matter and then pronounce sentence.
What's up, guys? True Crime King back. All right. So if you don't know, Lori Vallow Daybell, who killed her children and is facing, other murder charges right now. Right. She was sentenced yesterday. So we're going to watch the judge basically give his take on this trial and what kind of person Lori Daybell is. I might do, depending on how you guys like this one. There's another video where Lori actually speaks, and she's just crazy. She's talking about how she died and went to heaven, and sees her children in heaven, and all kinds of just crazy stuff, right? I mean, you don't go to heaven when you kill kids, okay? I don't think it's anywhere in the Bible says if you kill your kids, you go to heaven, right? Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, put it in the comments, okay? But anyway, here we go.
Ms. Vallow, based on the jury's verdict of guilty in this case, it is the judgment of this court that you're guilty of the following counts of the amended indictment. Count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception. Count 2, first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan. Count 3, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow and grand theft by deception.
Look at her just sitting there, like, laid back in her chair. I mean, she doesn't give a shit, you know?
Count 4, first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow. Count 5, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell. And count 7, grand theft. We've carefully reviewed the record of this case, beginning with your prior criminal history. Very notably, you're 50 years old. These are the first criminal convictions you've ever had. I will note, however...
And that speaks to something. I mean, so she went 50 years without getting in any trouble, and then all of a sudden, she kills her kids and probably it's more of her family members, right? It seems to me like she just went crazy over time. So just something in her brain just snapped. She's definitely crazy, okay?
In addition to these convictions, you have 2 additional conspiracy to commit first-degree murder cases pending in Arizona. And it's somewhat incredible in this case that seeing you've gone from no criminal history in your life to now having been convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and you continue to face more additional counts of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in another state. I've looked at the recommendations in the pre-sentence investigation report. It ultimately recommends a prison sentence stating, quote, incarceration under the custody of the Idaho Board of Correction. Normally, the court would have some additional information to rely on in fashioning its sentence, including the benefit of recommendations based on a gain evaluation, substance abuse report, mental health review, and other reports. However, you elected not to cooperate with the pre-sentence investigation.
So why do you guys think she didn't cooperate with giving her history, her mental health history, and substance abuse history, right? Obviously, she's either had substance abuse issues or she's had some mental health issues in the past, or she would have she would have talked, right? I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
As I would note on page 23 of the pre-sentence investigation report, it states, quote, Lori Vallow Daybell intends to remain silent during the pre-sentence investigation process. She has the packet but does not intend to answer any questions of evaluators or investigators. Quote, no attempts were made to complete the court-ordered screenings due to her refusal. I'm advising you that that was your choice to not cooperate in the pre-sentence investigation, but it left me without some additional information that potentially could have been mitigating in your case.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it would, no matter what she said, she was she was gonna get the life sentence, right? But you know, it would be, we would all benefit to know what exactly she is wrong with her, right? Mentally, right? Something is definitely wrong with Lori Daybell.
And as I proceed with the sentencing, I'll note those deficiencies in the information I normally would have in a pre-sentence investigation report. As has been mentioned by both sides here, the court has to consider certain sentencing objectives when I sentence somebody, and these are set out in cases including State versus Toohill, which is a Court of Appeals case 103 Idaho 565, and it's been adopted by our Supreme Court as well. And I have to consider four main objectives. Number one, the protection of society, which is the primary objective. Two, deterrence of the individual and public generally. Three, possibility of rehabilitation. And four, punishment or retribution for wrongdoing.
Okay, real quick. So, yeah, she's definitely, if she was ever let out, major threat to society, right? I mean, she's crazy as hell, right? And she'll probably try and start another cult, and who knows what chaos would ensue if Lori Daybell was ever let out of prison, right? She takes advantage of men by doing sexual favors for them, acting like she's in love, and then she gets them to help her, right? That's her modus operandi, in my opinion. She gets men that just think, that are, I guess, weak-minded, like Chad Daybell, and they get taken advantage of, right?
That case states, moreover, it's clear as a matter of policy in Idaho, the primary consideration is the good order and protection of society.
And if anybody disagrees and thinks that society would not be in danger if Lori Daybell was let out, please comment below, because I know you're out there.
All other factors must be subservient to that end. I've also reviewed and considered the criteria set forth in an Idaho statute, 1925-21, on the question of whether or not you should be confined to prison and to what extent. That statute sets out a variety of factors I have to consider in weighing whether a long prison term here would be appropriate. Some of the attorneys cited already to some of the provisions of that statute, and again, it talks about the primary consideration of the protection of society, and also talks about the impact on the victim, the possibility of risk reduction through rehabilitation, and deterrence are also to be considered. There are some factors laid out in that statute that are not necessarily controlling, but weigh in favor against either imprisonment, or in this case where imprisonment's required, an extensive imprisonment term. Some of those factors under Part 2 of this statute is the defendant's criminal conduct neither caused nor threatened harm, which is clearly not the case here. That the defendant did not contemplate the conduct would cause or threaten harm. Again, that would not apply here. The defendant's criminogenic needs indicate the defendant will benefit from supervision and treatment in the community. That's unavailable, as community treatment can't occur with a minimum prison sentence required here. Another factor, were there substantial grounds tending to excuse or justify the defendant's criminal conduct, though failing to establish a defense? I don't find those apply given the facts of this case. Other factors, the victim of the defendant's criminal conduct induced or facilitated the commission of the crime. That did not occur here. Another part talks about compensation, which I don't find would be appropriate here other than on the grand theft charge. Part G, the defendant has no history of prior delinquency or criminal activity or has led a law-abiding life for a substantial period of time before the commission of the present crime. That is the single most mitigating factor I see in this case.
That's the only mitigating factor, right?
Again, it's unbelievable that at your age you have no prior criminal history and now you sit here convicted of the most serious of charges.
I agree.
I also have to consider whether the criminal conduct was the result of circumstances unlikely to recur. Based on the evidence in this case, and in particular, considering the statement you just made to the court, I find it weighs against me finding in mitigation for that factor.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about,
finally,
the statement that she made.
Character and attitudes of the
just
defendant
a
indicate
crazy,
the commission of
rambling
another crime
statement.
is unlikely, or the defendant demonstrates amenability to treatment. So those are the mitigating factors. Then in aggravation, we have more factors to consider. Is there an undue risk that during the period of a suspended sentence or probation, the defendant would commit another crime harmful to another person? Would a lesser sentence depreciate the seriousness of the defendant's crime? Will imprisonment provide appropriate punishment and deterrent to the defendant? Will imprisonment provide an appropriate deterrent for other persons in the community? And a factor that would not apply here is the defendant a multiple offender or professional criminal. I don't have an LSI score, which is one value I can look at to help determine whether or not you'd be likely to reoffend. I don't have that because you wouldn't cooperate with the report. So considering here,
It wouldn't have mattered anyway.
you've lived a law-abiding life, and for a long time you were obviously a good mother, sister, daughter, and friend to many people. I have to take that into account. You've served a very long time of local jail, over 1,200 days, and the report is you've been a great inmate, never caused a problem for anyone in the jail. And you should be commended for that. And that also shows that you are capable
she
of
can't
that.
manipulate anybody in the jail
I believe your
like
counsel
she can
when you told me you're an
outside.
intelligent person. Up until all these events began to transpire, you've achieved goals in your life, you've done important things in your life. And I'd note that despite some of the comments here today, I have found that during my interactions with you throughout this long case, including your trial, you've been respectful of the court. Do we know what this beeping is that keeps going off? Sorry. All right, the court will next consider, and I think it must be considered in mitigation, that you do have mental health issues. I've dealt with those throughout the context
Here we
of this
go.
case where there were commitment proceedings. I've reviewed those reports and have that personal information from having gone through the determinations of whether or not you were competent or fit to stand trial. The most current diagnosis the court has is from Dr. Watson, and from February of this year states you suffer from, and I'll quote, delusional disorder, mixed type with bizarre content and hyper-religiosity, continuous and unspecified personality disorder with histrionic and narcissistic features.
So she's a narcissist. She's got personality disorder. She's got she basically thinks she can talk to the dead, right? Yeah, she's definitely everything the judge just said. Okay, that's why she didn't want to cooperate, with the court's, mental health thing, because she has so many issues now, and most likely they just started manifesting themselves in the later years of her life, which happens, you know.
So obviously a very complex diagnosis that's been made here. Whether or not that can or how it would be treated, I think by all accounts is unknown at this time.
In my opinion, all those cannot be treated, right? I mean, yeah, she can be given some medicine, but she's still gonna believe she can talk to Jesus. She can talk to her dead family in heaven, right? She thinks she can still go to heaven, right? And this all started when she was pregnant. She claims that she died while she was giving birth, and while she died, she went to heaven, and then wanted to stay, but then agreed to go back to her body. It just doesn't make any sense to me, at least. But she definitely suffers from major mental illness. But that's no excuse whatsoever for killing. She knows what she did when she killed her kids, and most likely killed the other people, who I'm not going to mention because she hasn't been convicted of it, but you guys can look it up or already know, right? And she's a narcissist, right? That's very evident. She is a complete and utter narcissist, right?
Reviewed your personal history, including statements from your own immediate family members, and it's clear that something radically changed in you that led you to where you are today.
Radically.
In a statement made in the pre-sentence investigation report, your mother stated it perhaps best and said that you are not now, quote, the person she knew.
That's coming from her mother.
Including all the evidence I observed during the jury trial indicates that, if it wasn't already occurring, that this relationship with the co-defendant seemed to be a catalyst for the change.
Chad Daybell, yeah.
At this point, I'll note that I will not be making comments on any...
Because if I'm not mistaken, Chad Daybell, right, he was preaching, right? That's why I think she manipulated him, right? To elevate her status, and that definitely, I agree, was probably the catalyst for all of this. If they wouldn't have met, who knows what would, who knows if this would have ever even happened, right?
Other co-defendants in this case, as your co-defendant is currently presumed innocent and awaiting trial. In sum, there are significant mitigating factors the court has to consider here when I consider you and your life as a whole, and that does make the case difficult. Typically, when I see somebody to be sentenced and they don't have a prior criminal history, they're given opportunities to first prove themselves on probation or avoid a lengthy term of incarceration. However, of course, some crimes are so serious that even with mitigation, there is no other reasonable option.
Murder, rape,
and a long prison term.
Pedophilia.
Sadly, you've been convicted of and have
assault.
committed the most serious crimes possible, and those crimes also require an equally serious punishment.
Yeah.
So this is the part where
you don't come back from murdering your children.
I think are the factors in aggravation.
You don't get a second chance. You're done.
I went through those factors in the statute that I look at, and as I'll explain, I find that 5 of those factors weigh against you and in favor of a lengthy period of imprisonment.
And okay, so here, this is the segment that this is the reason why I'm making this video, to hear what this judge is going to say to Lori. So pay attention, guys.
First, the case itself, I'll discuss that. There was a lot of pretrial litigation in the case. You decided to take your case to a jury trial. I will state and emphasize that I firmly believe it's the right of every person in our country to exercise their right to a jury trial, and are afforded the full due process of the law.
Oh, it is the right. Yeah.
It's been somewhat disheartening to me to realize that there are many people who think that they can predetermine a case and somebody shouldn't be afforded their full rights of due process before they are convicted of a crime. Well, I didn't make all of the rules that govern criminal cases, but I took an oath to uphold the rules that are there, and I make every effort to ensure that people's due process is protected.
And I think this judge did an excellent job.
Everyone has a right to be presumed innocent, and everyone in a criminal case does have a right to a jury trial.
Very thorough.
Sometimes I feel like maybe too many cases settle.
Very well spoken.
There should be more trials because it's a right people are entitled to exercise. You exercise that right, and I in no way hold it against you that you decided to have your case determined by a jury. That's your right, and it does not impact or influence my decision in sentencing. Before trial, I did not delve into all of the evidence or facts of this case and only address those when necessary to make rulings on motions, because I wanted to keep objective through the proceedings and remain impartial. You were afforded all of your due process in this case, and ultimately, after presentation of the evidence, a jury did find you guilty on all counts.
All counts.
I bring that up now because when there is a trial, I learn and see all of the facts along with the jurors. And that's a different scenario than when someone enters a plea and I'm only allowing argument in a sentencing and not sitting through the evidence as I did here. Having considered all of the evidence that I saw at trial along with the jurors, it's been a difficult task for me to narrow down and articulate all of the aggravating factors because really there are so many here. Murder.
Real quick, mitigating factors are factors that would help or lessen the sentence, okay? And aggravating factors are facts that would justify a harsher sentence, just in case anybody doesn't know all this lingo, okay? I know most of you do, but some of you don't, so please, that's why I'm explaining, okay?
Murder is the most serious offense. And the most unimaginable type of murder is to have a mother murdering her own children, and that's exactly what you did.
Unforgivable.
You were involved in and guilty of conspiring to murder another group of children's mother, Tammy Daybell, who had children of her own. And despite the jury convicting you with overwhelming evidence, you still sit here before the court today and said you didn't do it.
Yeah.
You came here to East Idaho, where I've spent my life, and moved here from another place already with plans in progress to make your children disappear. The evidence bore that out at trial. You removed your children from their home in Arizona, alienated them from friends and family, got rid of JJ's service dog. You moved to
See, that's cruel and unusual. I mean, the kid had a service dog, right? She got rid of it. That is just ridiculous. And that pisses me off. If it doesn't piss you off, then there might be something wrong with you too. But because that is just...
Expert, a community where you could find 1,000 random families to take your children, and you brought them here to murder them. You had so many other options.
Yeah.
You could have gotten divorced. You could have found someone to take care of those kids. But as the state was able to prove at trial, you chose the most evil and destructive path possible.
The judge just said everything
You killed those children, according to the state's theory, and I believe it, to remove them as obstacles and to profit financially. You justified all of this by going down a bizarre religious rabbit hole, and clearly you are still down there. While you were enjoying your new life in Hawaii, countless law enforcement officers, family members, and volunteers were searching for your children. And I don't think to this day you have any remorse for the effort and heartache you caused for others who looked for your children when you knew where they were.
Unacceptable. Time to pay the piper.
They were found dead, burned, mutilated, and dismembered, and buried like animals. After you knew they were dead, you collected public-funded assistance payments meant for them, and that was blood money you kept for yourself. And that's the grand theft charge you've been convicted of. Your sister, your son talked to you, begged with you while you were in the jail during phone calls I heard at trial, and those were very sad and difficult calls to hear. And you didn't provide any assistance or comfort to them. During the trial, when the evidence came out about how these children were found and the state they were in, you wanted to be excused and not have to watch the evidence, and were fine to let all the other people in the courtroom, including the jurors, have to bear through that.
So she burned, mutilated, killed her children, right? Then, when she's sitting in trial and she's going to have to see the photos and the evidence of all this, she wanted to be excused. But then the judge, everybody in the courtroom, and all the jurors would have to see it. But then the person responsible wanted to leave the room so she didn't have to see it. What a coward, right? What a coward. She 100% knows exactly what she's doing. That is just...
However, I ruled that you did have to sit and watch.
Good.
To see the result of your heinous crimes.
Yeah.
The jurors in your case fulfilled their duty admirably. All 18 jurors we had, because we had alternates, went through the entire trial and faithfully fulfilled all their obligations and all the instructions, so we were able to get impartial jurors who weren't already tainted by pretrial publicity to decide your case. And I do thank the jurors publicly for the service they rendered.
You're not going to win an appeal on that, Lori.
We're very good at keeping their emotions in check and keeping stone-faced, as they're supposed to do, and be objective until the case is done and submitted. However, I did note at certain times during the trial, such as when there were videos and pictures shown of you in Hawaii at this time frame when JJ and Tylee were lying in shallow graves, the disgust on the faces of those jurors was evident, and shocking revelations about what happened here just kept coming through the trial.
Yeah, she's in Hawaii, right? With their new husband, having the time of their lives, right? And meanwhile, everybody's out searching for her kids that she knows are dead, burned, and in a shallow grave. What a horrible, disgusting animal.
The crime scene was a horrific thing to have to review, and there's images that I will never get out of my mind, and I'm just looking at the pictures. Law enforcement officers who had to deal with the aftermath of what you did, I'm sure were traumatized, And I know it was traumatic as well for the jurors who had to sit through and see the photographs of these dead and mutilated and buried children.
Yeah, those jurors are just normal, regular civilians.
Those
They've
people
never seen
who
dead people
loved
before.
and cared about JJ and Tylee and Tammy Daybell, to have to see those photographs of them through trial of their dead and desecrated bodies must have been devastating.
And they were
Tammy
children.
Daybell was murdered as a result of your conspiracy. She was, by all accounts, a healthy, happy mother and wife through a lot of her life, and you were out shopping for wedding rings to marry her husband while she was still alive. You were planning a wedding
Manipulation,
to her husband while she was still alive.
narcissism.
You haven't shown any
Craziness.
remorse for any of those actions, and she ended up being murdered, buried, had to be disinterred later so an autopsy could be performed in order to prove the evidence of what you had done.
Piece of
She
shit.
didn't deserve any of that. You took her life away. You destroyed that family, fractured it to the point where, in the information I've had through the PSI, there are relationships that will probably never be mended that have rippled as a result of what's happened. JJ and Tylee, of course, 7 years old, 16 years old, were separate people whose lives were cut way too short because of you. Never got to grow up and be adults. The family and friends who have provided their impact statements, of course, have stated it better than I could about who they were, and it is a loss for everyone that you took them away from this world. And it is the most shocking thing, really, I can imagine, is that a mother killed her own children, and you simply have no remorse for it. Even sitting here today, there's no remorse for what you did. After all of this evidence through trial, you haven't shown any remorse. You haven't said
Nothing.
You're sorry. You haven't done anything to seek leniency from this court. There's been a lot of people during trial and here who have explained the devastation you're responsible for, and you've forever altered the lives, not in a good way, for many, many people, destroying family relationships, taking people away that were loved, cared for, and needed.
Needed.
You may not believe to this day that you've done anything wrong, and you still may think you're justified by your religious beliefs for what happened here.
She's just
Not here to
saying
judge
that.
but I don't
She
believe that
knows.
any God in any religion would want to have this happen, what happened here. And your crimes are heinous and egregious, and that alone can constitute a major aggravating factor.
And I just want to emphasize what the judge just said. No God in any religion would want two innocent children to be killed like they were, and a mother killed like she was. No God.
It requires me to impose serious length of incarceration. So after weighing all those factors, I need to in aggravation. I find that the sentences I'm about to impose will serve the interest of justice by, number one, preventing you from ever doing this again, that they will not depreciate the seriousness of your crimes, will punish you appropriately, and will serve to deter both you and others. So that concludes the aggravating factors the court considered. At this time, then, I am prepared to pronounce sentence. Mr. Thomas, Mr. Archibald, and the defendant, would you please rise for the pronouncement of sentence?
Here we go.
Based on all the relevant circumstances, including the evidence and recommendations presented in court today, it's the judgment of this court. Ms. Vallow, you'll be sentenced as follows. I'll first note I'm going to take up the counts out of order as I want to address the substantive murder sentences first. So on count 2, the charge you were convicted of, the first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan, you are sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence of fixed determinate term of life imprisonment with no possibility of parole.
Boom.
On count 4, the charge of the first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow, you are sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence, a fixed determinate life imprisonment sentence with no possibility of parole.
Boom.
I'll next address the 3 conspiracy counts you've been convicted of. And note, under Idaho Code 18-1701, the punishment for those crimes is the same as the underlying offenses you combined to commit. One of the offenses you combined to commit was first-degree murder, so those may be punishable also by imprisonment for life. When I look at what the appropriate sentences should be for the conspiracy charges, at first I wondered if they should be as long of a term or serious as the substantive murder charges. However, what I've concluded is that these conspiracy convictions merit the same grave punishment for several reasons. First, the conspiracies in which you engaged in have had far-reaching impacts on many people besides the deceased victims. And with what the court's heard, I am convinced that the conspiracy charges also merit the same serious sentence. So on count 1, the conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception, you're sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence, a fixed determinate term of life imprisonment with no possibility of parole.
Boom. All right. So the judge threw away the key, locked her up. Lori Vallow Daybell is done, as she should be. The animal that she is, it will rot in a cage for the rest of her miserable life. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, listening to it. And I might do another one on her rambling, dumb speech before the judge spoke. But we'll see. Until next time, guys, True Crime King, out.